Wasabi Wallet. Unfairly private.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the show. We have lots to talk about today. Bitcoin blew past 50K rather decisively this week after kind of bumping up against that level for a little while there. And yeah, the news keeps on coming. There's tons of people diving in, showing interest, institutions, people just in awe of what's going on, people angry about what's going on, and Bitcoiners just soaking it in. So it's been a very, very exciting week. As always, this is, of course, live. So quick message from my good friend Bill here.
We'll do it live. Okay. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. And thing sucks.
Anything can happen when you're going live, so hopefully everything goes as planned. But as always, guys, thank you for being here. Smash that like button. Give this a share. I am Ben with the BTC Sessions, and this is your daily session.
Hodl the Bitcoin.
All right, so let's get a look at what is going on in the market right now. I'll just pull up my screen here. So we're sitting around $52,064 per Bitcoin. For a single US dollar, you can now only pick up 1,921 sats. So we finally broke that $2,000 level. You're getting less sats for your dollars, friends. You better stack them while you can. 88.73% of all Bitcoin that will ever be mined have been mined. And in terms of fees, if you want to get into the next block, you're looking at around 123 sats per byte. If you're willing to wait an hour, still about 90 sats per byte. Again, if the fees are getting you down, then you might want to look into using Lightning for day-to-day stuff. Check out something like Breeze Wallet. I've done videos on that. So lots of options out there. Now, before we dive into the news, of course, shout out to sponsors of the show, Ledn.io, where you can use your Bitcoin for a variety of different services. They've got their Bitcoin-backed loans. Those have saved me on a few occasions, and mainly in instances where I needed to get dollars, but I didn't want to sell my Bitcoin because those are taxable events, and I was worried about having to buy back in at a higher price. So I'm able to deposit Bitcoin, get dollars to my bank account, and when I pay back those dollars, I get back the same amount of Bitcoin, which is the important part to me. Of course, they also do have their Bitcoin in USDC savings accounts with interest rates of up to 12.25% annually paid monthly. And they've got their B2X offering. It uses the same loan mechanism to instantly buy more Bitcoin, effectively doubling your Bitcoin on the spot. So if you want to check them out for anything, links down below. If you click that link and opt to get either of their loan products, well, you'll get $25 for free into your savings. Up next, Cobo Vault, one of my regularly used hardware wallets. I love it because it's 100% air gapped. That means you never plug it into an internet connected device. It's all done via QR code, and this keeps the keys to your money safe and offline. It works with a whole bunch of other software wallets. I use it a lot with Blue Wallet and Wasabi Wallet, but it's great for things like multi-sig. Really versatile. So be sure to check it out. Links below. Now, I do live on Bitcoin. For those of you new to the show, you may not know that, but I live on Bitcoin. I earn Bitcoin. I spend Bitcoin. I do it all. So one of the ways I do this is through BitRefill. Of course, they have just about every possible gift card you could imagine, and you can pay with Bitcoin or Lightning Network, whatever you please, but be sure to check them out. These guys are fantastic. And finally, if you're backing up any of your wallets, maybe not on paper. Fire if there's a flood or if you accidentally throw it out, you're kind of hooped. So you might want to back it up on something more robust like Solid Steel, and the Bill Fodl is excellent for that. You can head over to privacypros.io to check them out, but this is basically how I back up all of my wallets in Solid Steel. So I feel pretty confident about that. So with that, let's dive into a little bit more. I wanted to bring up this graphic first because I fucking love it. It shows Bitcoin yearly candles, the advances or declines in the price of Bitcoin since back to 2011. So over the past 10 years. So what I'm interested about here, it does show the percent gain or loss that it makes in any given year. And it seems to be on a pattern where you get 3 years of growth and then a small decline. 3 years of growth and then a small decline. So the interesting thing is that the third year of growth tends to be a fucking banger. And what I mean is in the third year of any one of these cycles, it just blows through the roof. And if we look back to the last one, you see in 2015, it gained 34%. In 2016, it gained 125%. And in 2017, it gained 1,335%. We did, of course, then have a bear market. We had a pullback the following year of 73%. But let's look at where we are right now, because it's kind of blowing my mind, the numbers. In both instances, in year 1 and 2, we have tripled the numbers of the previous cycle. So, roughly tripled. So instead of 34%, 94% up in 2019. Instead of 125%, 304% up in 2020. And so far, we're only in mid-February and we're already up 62%. If we kind of mirror the percentage gains I'm talking about in comparison from year to year. So 34%, 125 to 1335. I'm talking 2015, 2016, 2017. That was the performance. If we were to mirror that, but comparatively, so year 1, we're about 3 times that. Year 2, we're about 3 times that. Year 3, if that remained consistent and we were roughly 3 times that, we'd be looking at like 800K per coin. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but damn, while I would be astounded, I would also, it's not outside the realm of possibility, I suppose. I don't know. You guys have to let me know. What do you think? Do you think that we continue to perform the way we have, kind of like 3 times higher gains than the previous cycle? Or do you think the timing might be a little bit off? We're going to underperform that. Do you think that these outlandish sounding 800K within the year is ridiculous? Or do you think we're going to be quite shy of that? Do you think we'll only hit, like some people are thinking, like 100K is going to be the top? I don't know, man. I'm very curious because things seem to be going at a quicker pace than we were in 2017 for that bull market. So very exciting. Now, the guys over at CNBC, they seem to be having a hard time with this, particularly, I can't remember the guy's name, Alexander. Anyways, this, if you're watching here, this guy here, he just seems to not be able to handle the price action here. This clip, and I'm not going to show the clip here just so I don't get flagged or anything, but this clip from CNBC, it's linked in the show notes, but the 2 main anchors here on CNBC, Joe Kernan and, again, forgive me for forgetting this guy's name, they're just back and forth talking about it, and they're just at a total loss for words. Like they just don't understand what they're looking at. And I find it kind of funny because Bitcoiners that have been here for a while, this was expected. I mean, Bitcoiners are excited right now, but they're not surprised. There's a big difference there. And these guys it's genuine surprise and awe at what has happened here. And at one point, Joe Kernan, and he does kind of get it, like he's talking about it. He's like, well, I mean, take the economic output of basically the entire financial system and divide it by 21 million, and then decide what percentage of that Bitcoin could capture. And you can get some pretty insane numbers. And that's also what I was talking about, like $800,000. It doesn't start to seem outlandish in that context. It's a little bit of sticker shock and unit bias that you're experiencing, as opposed to, well, I mean, if it takes a huge chunk of financial markets, that starts not being outside of the realm of possibilities. This year, I don't know, but eventually, yeah, absolutely. So let's dive into some of the actual news here. Today, here in my country, in Canada, we launched the first North American Bitcoin ETF. So the Ontario Securities Commission gave its blessing on Thursday. I'll also read a little bit here from CoinDesk. The first publicly traded Bitcoin exchange traded fund, or ETF, in North America has been given the go-ahead by Canada's financial regulator. According to a decision document on Thursday, Purpose Investments' receipt of approval from the Ontario Securities Commission was filed under multilateral instrument passport system in multiple Canadian jurisdictions. So basically, across the country, you can now buy a Canadian Bitcoin ETF. So multiple closed-end Bitcoin funds have been listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange, such as the ones listed by Canadian investment manager 3iQ. They do differ from an ETF, though. So in the case of an ETF, the units are issued on a continuous basis, while closed-end funds issue units at their initial public offering and reopenings. So if that sounds like Greek to you, basically what it means is an ETF is if you want exposure to Bitcoin and you buy an ETF, then they continually issue new shares of that ETF because it's backed by whatever the ETF is backed by, in this case, Bitcoin. So you say, I want Bitcoin ETF sitting in my retirement account, and you buy that, they obtain more Bitcoin to back said ETF share so that you have exposure to it. With a closed-end fund, they have a certain amount of Bitcoin sitting there, and people can buy shares of that existing Bitcoin. And then at later points, they can then accumulate. So that can be it could be at a premium to compare to the Bitcoin sitting there. So you could have a limited amount of Bitcoin effectively allowed to be bought up. And because it's the only Bitcoin that is available on traditional markets, the premium can be quite high. Not so anymore now that the ETF is out, because it tracks more closely to the actual price of Bitcoin. Whereas these closed-end funds, limited amount of Bitcoin. If you want to buy into it, you can, but then they can add more Bitcoin to it and kind of dilute your shares. So if you buy when there's a premium, there's a good chance that premium is going to go down and you might get kind of diluted out. So it kind of sucks that way. Anyways, I just wanted to read a little bit more here. So it says the fund seeks to replicate the performance price of Bitcoin minus fees and expenses, according to a fact sheet posted by Canada-based asset manager Purpose Investments. The ETF won't speculate on short-term changes in the price of Bitcoin. Basically people can now track Bitcoin via an ETF, and this can extend out into lots of different funds that can now allocate into this ETF. Really cool to see. And on that front, the SEC Commissioner Peirce says that the market is ready for a Bitcoin ETP, exchange traded product. So the U.S. capital markets are ready for Bitcoin exchange-traded products, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commissioner Hester Peirce said on CoinDesk TV on Thursday. The regulator, playfully known as Crypto Mom, said people are already eager to trade a Bitcoin ETP. And so if we don't give them a natural way, which I would think would be an ETP, they are going to look for other less optimal ways to do it. Peirce also pushed back in her interview against an emerging government narrative that cryptocurrency is a dangerous rail for terrorist financing. She cast doubt on the size of the alleged problem and insisted that there is no way to ban Bitcoin outright. Peirce said she looks forward to working with the SEC chairman nominee Gary Gensler once the former MIT digital currency professor is confirmed by the Senate. So yeah, I mean, it seems like more people in kind of those higher up places are starting to get orange pilled, or the people that were already believing in Bitcoin have risen to those positions where they can actually start changing regulations to be more accepting of this stuff. So you see gradually this bending of the knee to the force that is Bitcoin, which is really, really interesting to be witnessing after all these years. So awesome. Let's move on here. Bitcoin just arrived on Apple Pay. Here's how to use it. Did it? Not exactly. Let's dive in here. So if you're an Apple Pay user looking to cash out your Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies after the recent surge, then BitPay just made it a whole lot easier. There's the rub. You're not using really Bitcoin. It's like a third-party integration. Like, you're not holding Bitcoin on Apple Pay. So BitPay is a payment processor in the US. I am not a huge fan of BitPay. They've done some kind of crappy things in the past, but some people use them. They do issue kind of like a Visa debit card where you can actually have Bitcoin in your account and utilize that card to spend the Bitcoin. It gets converted to dollars kind of on the spot and so on and so forth. So what you can actually do here is go on your Apple Pay and then add your BitPay card to Apple Pay. So is that Bitcoin on Apple Pay? I'd say it's like a 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon version of having Bitcoin on Apple Pay, but it's something. So I'm not going to go much further into that. Let's get into all of the people that want Bitcoin now. This from CNBC, BlackRock's Rick Ryder says the world's largest asset manager has started to dabble, and that's a quote, in Bitcoin. So BlackRock's Rick Ryder told CNBC on Wednesday the world's largest asset manager has begun entering the Bitcoin space. The remarks from Ryder, who is BlackRock's chief investment officer of global fixed income, came on the same day that Bitcoin broke above 51 grand for the first time. Quote, "Today, the volatility of it is extraordinary. But listen, people are looking for storehouses of value. People are looking for places that could appreciate under the assumption that inflation moves higher and that debts are building. So we've started to dabble a bit into it." Now, I did want to highlight down here, and this is the interesting thing, is he said, we're holding a lot more cash than we've held historically. It's because duration doesn't work, interest rates don't work as a hedge, and so diversifying into other assets makes some sense. Holding some portion of what you hold in cash in things like crypto seems to make some sense to me, but I wouldn't espouse a certain allocation of target holding. New York-based BlackRock had 8.68 trillion with a T of assets under management at the end of the fourth quarter in 2020. The largest asset manager on the planet is effectively saying, listen, it's risky to hold dollars and we don't know where the hell else to put them, which is largely a symptom of the way that central banks are handling the currencies, that they're starting to look at Bitcoin as an off-ramp to insulate themselves from these policies. And that is astounding because this is exactly the kind of thing the Bitcoiners have been talking about for years, but you're seeing it play out in real time. And yes, it happened to coincide with the crisis and lockdowns and everything like that. But that just happened to be the thing that it coincided with. Did it maybe accelerate things a little bit? Absolutely. But it wasn't because of that entirely. It was an eventuality that would have come to fruition. So beyond that, more people are seeing this. JPMorgan and Morgan Stanley are eyeing Bitcoin. Here are the big Wall Street names warming to cryptocurrencies. So a $150 billion investment arm of Morgan Stanley is weighing up getting involved in Bitcoin, according to a report, as the soaring price of the biggest cryptocurrency garners attention from Wall Street. In another example of rising interest, JPMorgan co-president Daniel Pinto said on Friday that he's sure demand for Bitcoin will pick up to the extent that the Wall Street giant will have to be involved. So JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, both starting to dive in. And keep in mind, they're not going to say we are actively buying this. They're going to kind of pussyfoot around it until they already have their position, right? That's you don't want to say we're about to buy this amount. And same with, we were just talking about BlackRock. He's like, well, I don't want to say an allocation, but it's something that we're interested in. That's because they still have to get their position. If they say, hey, we're going to go out and we're going to pull an Elon and grab another 1.5 billion, which for them would be like nothing, Elon did what, 10%, I think. If BlackRock did it, 10%, that's like close to $1 trillion. That's like all of Bitcoin. So keep that in perspective. So BlackRock, even if they wanted 1 to 2%, they'd already be buying basically more than Elon just did. And that, look at what that did to the price. So it's getting wild in here, guys. Another one from the Daily Hodl: Deutsche Bank preparing to support crypto assets, quote unquote, providing prime brokerage and storage for clients. So a World Economic Forum report is unveiling Deutsche Bank's plans to introduce a digital asset custody platform that provides prime brokerage and storage for clients. In a recently published document, the bank states that it plans to build a platform that integrates cryptocurrencies and digital asset programs with conventional banking. So it says they're aiming to introduce a secure, connected bridge between digital assets and customers' traditional banking services, manage an array of digital assets and fiat holdings in one easy-to-use platform, and create the gateway for value-added services either supplied by the custodian or via third-party providers. And they want to ensure the safety and accessibility of assets for clients, offering institutional-grade hot and cold storage solutions with insurance-grade protection. So now you're seeing banks scrambling to go, shit, this is something that everybody wants. Major players are getting into this. To stay relevant, we have to offer services to people. I'm fine with this. I'm fine with them saying, okay, how do we remain relevant? What services can we offer? What can we do that people maybe don't want to do for themselves? I'm a self-custody kind of person. I don't trust other people, not your keys, not your coins, but maybe that's not for some people. It should be, but there's just some people have been in the legacy financial system for too long. They're too used to hand holding. Maybe they're old. They're not going to be learning how to handle private keys and use hardware wallets. Maybe this is them. So at least they aren't trending towards zero versus Bitcoin because they have no exposure. So I'm okay with this. Am I going to use it? No. And even still, MicroStrategy, Jesus. If you're unfamiliar with MicroStrategy, they kind of dropped the bombshell last summer that they were dropping basically all of their cash reserves into Bitcoin, and it spurred on this rush that we're seeing now, where it gave actual legitimacy on that level, and people saw that and they started moving. Now, were people already kind of planning this before? I have to believe that some dominoes were already starting to fall before this happened, but this was the first major public announcement of it, and it really turned a lot of heads, and they are not stopping. Another $600 million in convertible senior notes, basically issuing debt with no interest offered, so that they can purchase more Bitcoin. Another $600 million. They've done this. They've got over $1 billion worth now. I don't know how. It's hard to keep track. They keep on buying all of the Bitcoin. So, I mean, hats off to Michael Saylor, but holy shit. Look at this guy. Okay, let's move on a bit. So Dave Portnoy from Barstool Sports, he last summer also was starting to get into Bitcoin. He even had the Winklevoss twins come over and show him how to buy Bitcoin. And then he kind of bitched out and sold when it had a slight dip, sold all of his Bitcoin. He was diving into shitcoins. He was doing all of the bad moves. He sold everything. And he posts this video to his Twitter where he's just like losing it over. Oh my God. I don't know if the audio is going to come through, but he's like just he's so he can't believe it. He can't believe it. He said, oh, it was at $11,000 in last August. And now it's at 50, and he's like swearing and he's holding his head in his hands, but he's still refusing to buy Bitcoin. He's good. He's holding out. He's like, I am never buying Bitcoin. Dude is going to FOMO in hard at the top. I think you see Portnoy start to buy again. Maybe take a look around and see if it seems like a local top, because I get the feeling that's what he's going to do again. Okay. Let's get into some FUD. It's bad FUD time. Lots of FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt coming your way. Reminded of the Dutch Tulip craze. Can't even say this is like a story out of 2014. Okay. Reminded of the Dutch Tulip craze, the European Central Bank's Makhlouf, I don't know how to say his name, won't buy Bitcoin. So the ECB governing council member, basically, when Bitcoin blew through its milestone of $50,000 for the first time, they said that they wouldn't be buying Bitcoin, comparing the investment in the world's largest cryptocurrency to the 17th century Netherlands tulip craze, which ended in collapse. Bitcoin investors need to be prepared to, quote, lose all their money, he said, repeating a warning from last month, though added he's not advising people whether or not to invest in the digital currency. So you're going to hear this a lot. If you're new to Bitcoin, get ready, because somebody's going to say tulips to you at some point. The thing is, it's such a terrible comparison. Let's take a look. And I've got to give a shout out to Jim Reaper on Twitter for helping me find this. This is a chart comparing Bitcoin over the course of the number of years it's existed versus both the tulip bubble and the South Sea bubble. And both of which, so you can see Bitcoin that continues to grow. And this is a log chart. So logarithmic, the further it goes up, the more exponentially it's moving. But you can see that both the South Sea bubble and the tulip bubble fully collapsed within 3 years. And in both cases, the majority of the spike happened within a single calendar year and quickly collapsed afterwards, never to reinflate. Then you look at Bitcoin. Is it volatile? Oh, absolutely, especially in the early days. Even now, it's volatile. It's pretty volatile. But looking at the chart, it's a continuous trend, and there are troughs and there are spikes, but it continues to trend upward and grow. And this is kind of the trajectory that you see as a network begins to gain mainstream adoption. And that's what we're seeing, because there's billions and billions of people on the planet, and only a small percentage of them are using Bitcoin. And so that continues to grow, and you can expect this kind of growth as the entire planet, if they choose to, start to use Bitcoin. And that's what we're seeing. We're not seeing a bubble. Like if this was to mirror the South Sea bubble or the tulip bubble, that first spike in the first year or even in the third year would have then resulted in collapse shortly thereafter. That did not happen. Did we have drawdowns? Absolutely. But then it kept on going because adoption continued to grow. So more or less, it was people saw a lot of fiat gains and thought that they wanted to own the dollars instead, and so swapped for dollars, took the profits, and then bought their houses or their Lambos or whatever the hell they did with it. But then other people saw the value proposition in, and some of those people came back and bought more. So it continues to grow. It is not the same. You can see quite clearly here. Now this, oh Lord, oh my God, this guy, he's been all over my Twitter feed today. Eric Halthos. Oh man. Okay, let me read his bio here. Meteorologist, climate journalist, dad to kids and plants, he/him, eco-socialist, #actually autistic, the future Earth. Okay, so that's his bio. I think he's some sort of a journalist. He's got a blue check mark, so must be important. Anyways, so here's the original tweet. 2/3 of Bitcoin is mined in China, where subsidized coal creates some of the cheapest electricity in the world. Half of that is in the Xinjiang province, I hope I'm saying that, where Uyghur Muslims have borne horrific human rights abuses, mining the very same coal for Bitcoin. And then he's concluded, Bitcoin is literally enabling genocide. This is where we're at, guys. Bitcoin is genocide. The cope is so strong in people. They just cannot handle it. I mean, first of all, 2/3 of Bitcoin is mined in China, where subsidized coal creates some of the cheapest electricity in the world. First of all, the majority of Bitcoin is actually hydro in rural China. However, even if that wasn't the case, and a lot of it was coming from coal, let's pay attention to the underlying issue here, subsidized coal. So the government has incentivized the burning of coal. If those subsidies weren't there, would it be the cheapest electricity in the world? That's very questionable. So subsidies draw certain behaviors out. And if there's cheaper electricity because of subsidies, then miners will probably flock there. We saw it in Venezuela as well, where there is effectively subsidized power. Well, what happens? That's largely covered by somebody else. And so why wouldn't you use that free power or that heavily subsidized power to generate money? Exactly that. And so, and then just to say, well, this is in the same region, therefore Bitcoin equals genocide is just such a reach. Unbelievable. I love also somebody took a screenshot of him sitting in a hot tub. He said, how's the hot tub water, Eric? Global hot tub energy consumption is about 75 gigawatts greater energy consumption than the 10 least energy using countries in the world. So like, I don't know. There's just a ton of hypocrisy in his tweets, and he's had a ton of them, but this is the kind of FUD that we're going to be dealing with this year. Anyways, let's move on from that. I'm done with that guy. Umbrel, by the way, if you guys don't know what Umbrel is, it's a very easy to use Bitcoin node that you can use with a Raspberry Pi and spin up and run. I use it. It's free to use, other than you got to buy your own Raspberry Pi, a little computer, but you can run an entire copy of the Bitcoin blockchain, link up your wallets to it, and be a fully self-sovereign Bitcoiner, trusting no one, trusting no third parties to tell you how Bitcoin works, and going by the rules of the network as you see fit. Well, they have updated and added some awesome apps to the Umbrel Bitcoin stack. They added Samurai Server, Dojo, and Whirlpool. They added mempool.space and LN Bits, which is a wallet connector, and Lightning Pool, and more. I'm just going to show you guys what this looks like. So this is Umbrel. I've got it all. Basically, I've got a little machine humming behind me here that has a hard drive and like a mini computer. I think the whole thing cost me about $200 to put together, and it, it's like a fancier version than I needed to make. And then I can log on to it from my laptop as long as it's on the same network. So when I log in, now I'm not storing Bitcoin on this, but I do connect wallets to it. So you can have a Lightning wallet. I've played around with that. You can have a Bitcoin copy of Bitcoin Core, and you can connect wallets to it, or you can actually have a wallet within this that you just use. And so when you go to Bitcoin, it shows you any transactions you've done, so on and so forth. When you go to Lightning, you can set up Lightning channels and play around with that. There's a section where it says you can connect your wallet. You can do a drop down and choose which wallet you're trying to connect to it, and it will give you the necessary code to do that. But the thing that I really like, and you can see I've already downloaded some apps here, is they have an app store where you can get different applications that interact with Bitcoin. And so they've just started adding even more. Now, an alternative to this is MyNode, which I also use and experiment with just because I like to play with things. But I just found that Umbrel, the user experience and the user interface is just so pretty and well put together. It looks so smooth. So they added mempool.space, which is a mempool visualizer. In fact, what the hell? I'll show you what it looks like. So when I click it, it's going to take me. And so this is using data from my own node. It shows how many transactions are waiting to be put through and the blocks that are coming through. It shows like anticipated fees for transactions, all kinds of stuff, what you should be paying, previous blocks, all kinds of interesting information. Really, really cool to be able to sort through all this stuff. I love it. I think it's great. And yeah, you can just download the apps that you want and utilize it. Really cool. I've done an explainer video on getting started with Get Umbrel, how to put together your node, how to download the software, and basically hit play and let it start to sync up. So if you want to check that out, just search my channel for Umbrel node and you shall find it. Anyways, guys, I'm going to wrap it up there. Damn. Good week. I've got a killer episode coming tomorrow of WOB, or Why Are We Bullish? A lot of fun people. Be sure to join me for that. It's going to be a blast. That'll be at the same time tomorrow. As always, please do hit like, subscribe, and share. Those are so important. It really does help. We got almost like 200 people here today. So thank you. Smash that like, share it out. Really happy to see more people joining in for the show. Now, if you want to help with the show in another way, you could hit up the sponsors I mentioned previously. That was Ledden, Kobo, BitRefill, and Privacy Pros. All of that is linked below. And if you really loved what you saw, you can always hit me up with a Bitcoin Lightning Network tip at my Tippin' Not Me page. That is tippin.me/@BTC Sessions. And with that, I'm out. Have yourselves a wonderful day, a wonderful evening, wherever you may be, and I will see you next time for your daily session.
Hodl the Bitcoin.